Hello there, everyone. This is David, Fairly Secret Music, and this is my 1991 video. And if you haven't watched any of the other ones, the rules are I have a top 10 from 91, and I do some honorable mentions, but I do those first. I had to have owned the album in 91 and was listening to it. I won't include anything that was listened to in years after. So if I wasn't listening to it in 91, it's not on this list. This is kind of like my favorite albums from that year, when I was listening to them, and how they influenced me in my drumming and my writing and stuff like that. So, honorable mentions: Leeway, Desperate Measures. If you take kind of like an Anthrax vibe with a hardcore vibe and put a singer that kind of has reminiscent of Ozzy but way better, that's kind of what they are. Anacrusis or Anacrusis, Manic Impressions. Think of a singer who sometimes sounds like a black metal singer almost, but does it in a very melodic and kind of singy way rather than just screaming for the sake of screaming. Drums that are really awesome, bass, just everything is awesome with these band. Queen, Innuendo. Maybe other people would consider this should be a top 10. I think it's one of their best albums, especially post 1981. What a way to go out for Freddie, because technically this is the last one they did when he was still alive. Everything and everyone is firing on all cylinders on this. Just amazing. But I put into perspective things that kind of influenced me more as a musician or influenced me as a music listener. And although this one does have a lot of influence on certain aspects, there's so many other things that are a little better. Not even a little better, just for me, personal opinions or personal taste. Horoscope, I saw them on this tour. This album came out on my birthday. So did Rush, Roll the Bones. This is a great album. The one thing that brings it down for me is Frankenstein. I don't think they should have done a cover of that. You could say this should be in my top 10, but there are other things that beat it out. Same thing with this, Confessor Condemned. They are a band, like, think of a doom metal band with a singer who sounds like he should have been in Queensryche or Fates Warning or whatever. They are an acquired taste. You like one song, you probably like them all. On this album, of course. Like 20 some years later, they did a second album, and that one wasn't quite as good, but the drummer chokes his cymbals with the same hand that he hits. Like he'll hit and he'll grab them. Very technical, very doomy, very high vocals. Cyclone Temple should technically probably be in my top 10, but it just got beat out by especially one other, my number 10 technically. This is a great album. I have 2 copies of it. Yeah, just check it out if you want really great thrash with good melodies and a good vocalist. Fugazi, Steady Diet of Nothing. I should have seen them on this tour. If they toured again and said, we're going to play Steady Diet from front to back, I would be there in a heartbeat. This is a great album. I know a lot of people aren't going to be showing technically a lot of things, actually, and that was one of Metal Mickey's things. He's like, you know, from 88 to probably 91, people are going to be showing a lot of the same things. This is kind of where my tastes and everybody else are going to start going. Like 92, I don't have any honorable mentions, really, and 93... it's very wide open, and a lot of non-metal stuff too. So those were all honorable mentions. So if those albums were honorable mentions, what is on my top 10? Time Does Not Heal by Dark Angel. Oh my god, this thing is riddled with riffs. Originally, the cassette said 56 minutes, 65 minutes of music, 265 riffs. Just so many words, so many words. Just Gene Hoglan at his best. I believe, yes, Terry Date produced this, and whoever engineered it, let's see who the engineered. Oh, he also engineered it. It is fantastic. This album does not mean to be remixed at all. Maybe a remaster would be cool, but the songs are long and just complex and just awesome. Sting's Soul Cages. This album is 100% front to back. I saw him at the Target Center in Minneapolis, and I've never heard that place sound so good. And that place has awful sound, just awful, atrocious sound. It was fantastic, and one of my favorite drummers, Manu Katché, is on here. So, Sailing the Seas of Cheese by Primus. Mickey is wondering why he likes this album. I'll tell you why you're liking it, because it's awesome. It's super great. Sergeant Baker, Here Come the Bastards, tons of Odd Time. I brought this album into my drum teacher, and you can see track 6 is called 11. I brought it in and said, can you tell me what time signature is in it? This album, or this part is in, and he's counting it, and he's like, 11, what's the name of the song? And I turn it around, and I'm like, it's called 11. So, Marillion, Holidays in Eden. There's also a alternate cover that looked like this. Oh, wow. The little thing is broken off the one end. That's gross. Stupid double discs. This starts so strong with Splintering Heart, but the original American version did not start with Splintering Heart. It started with, let's see, what did it start with? Cover My Eyes. Yeah, so the original British running order is way better, or European running order. But second album with Steve Hogarth, and probably my favorite one, because I have a live disc of them doing this album from front to back. The 3 songs at the end, This Town, Rake's Progress, and 100 Nights, are so awesome. And the Rake's Progress is the one thing I have quoted to people so many times. He says, and you list all the qualities that you despise, and you realize you're describing yourself. I've shown this before. R.E.M. Out of Time. What a fantastic album. I even like Shiny Happy People still to this day. Great breakup album, even though the girl that broke up with me, I bought this the night she dumped me, and I have no connection with that relationship to this album, but it's a great breakup album. It's weird. Usually you have a connection to that. Mr. Bungle. What is Mr. Bungle? Mr. Bungle comes in at number 5. I hated this album at first. I liked Travolta, or quote unquote, after a while they had to switch the song title because of legal things, but I hated this album. Then I listened, and I liked track number 1. The next time I listened to it, I liked track 2, and on until I loved the whole thing. And by the time I loved the whole thing, I was going to see them live at First Avenue, and it's in one of the top 5 shows that I've ever seen. It was so good. Now I'm not such a big fan of anything Mike Patton does, but I was huge into Mr. Bungle. Oh my god, Fate's Warning, Parallels. This actually comes in at number 4. So I think the last two videos, Fate's Warning, were number one. This is their more commercial stuff. I believe this was produced, yeah, it was produced by Terry Brown, who produces a lot of Rush stuff. And this was more on the commercial side, but songs like Leave the Past Behind, Eye to Eye, and 11th Hour are still pretty technical. Well, Eye to Eye isn't technical, but there's a bridge section where he sings, and it's fantastic. So if you're looking for the more commercial stuff, this is your thing. If you're looking for the more technical stuff, do Perfect Symmetry. If you're looking for heavier stuff, do No Exit. The album after this is Inside Out, and that's kind of like a combination of the technical and the more commercial. First death metal band I ever listened to, first album of death metal I ever purchased, well, technically no. I bought Scream Bloody Gore and hated it. But by 91, I got this and was like, holy shit, this is a whole new genre of technical death metal. Sean Reinhart and Paul Mustavo were playing guitar. Steve DiGiorio, I think is the way you pronounce it. Fretless bass, just amazing. And if you are going to go get them, get the remixed versions. They come in these slip cases, and the backs look like that. And it'll say, I don't know if this is going to focus. It says 20th anniversary, remixed by longtime producer Jim Morris, contains over an hour of unreleased bonus tracks, photos, and exclusive liner notes. These things are fantastic because you can finally hear the bass clearly on this one especially, and Individual Thought Patterns wasn't as bad of a mix with the bass, but now it's so awesome. First album I ever purchased by Voivod was Angel Rat, and it's still one of the top ones for me. Just amazing album, a lot of different feels. They go kind of Pink Floyd, they go rock, they go weird technical, just an awesome album. If you don't like Voivod for the most part, because they're too like sci-fi and whatever, you might like this album because it is more straightforward. But then you get to the song Angel Rat, and you know, it's just kind of dreamy and trippy and so good. But the number one album of 1991 for me is Lastcrack's Burning Time. This starts out with a song called Wicked Sandbox that is all about the destruction of the earth and just people not getting along and everything. And it is so fantastic. If you're a fan of Alice in Chains or Soundgarden, this is almost right up the alley of those bands. They could have toured with Soundgarden and been huge. They ended up being on tour with Armored Saint for some reason. I think it was because Dave Jordan, I think his name, I can't see, Dave Jordan or whatever, produced Armored Saint also, along with Red Hot Chili Peppers and stuff. But these guys just, this album is crazy. Some of the lyrics are crazy. There's a whole song about him and his sisters, or his sister and his brother, sledding. You would think, oh my god, it's a metal band, well, kind of metal, singing a song about sledding in the snow, and it's fantastic, beautiful. And then it goes into the song Energy Mind, and this was one of the first albums where I noticed hard pannings on the guitars, and one time a speaker got disconnected in my car, and I'm listening to this, and I didn't notice it at first, and the title track starts out with this, and then the other guitar comes in, and that first guitar never comes in. You just hear the bass kind of hitting the notes and then the second guitar comes in like with a, and it sounded really cool. So for one day I just decided, after I hooked up those speakers, to just turn off the left side and listen to parts of it, and then turn off the right side and listen to parts of it, just to see what each guitar player was doing. It's fantastic if you're listening on headphones. This is, of course, I like to point these out to Mike. This is a Metal Mind limited edition one. And yeah, I loved this band. They have a new album coming out in May, I believe. After this album came out in '91, so what is that, 28 years or something like that? So, all right, everybody, watch for my next video. I'm doing a couple more today.